HaMitzvah v'HaMitzvah Shishim, number 60, Samach. He shetzivonu sheyiyeh kol korban shenakriv min habehema, okay, kol korban shenakriv min habehema ben shmonas yomim o yoser v'loy pochos mehem. It's a very interesting lashon. Ben shmona yomim o yoser v'loy pochos mehem. To be very important lashon. Okay, it says it should be more and not less. V'zohi mitzvas mechusa zman begufay. This is the mitzvah of mechusa zman b'mitzvah. V'om yis'aleh v'hoya shivas yomim tachas imoy v'mayom השמיני והלאה ירוצה לקורבן. So we don't know the tzim, we don't know anything. So here's a mitzvah, we'll have to just start very slowly and try to understand what's going on. So let's take it from the top slowly. So again, there's a mitzvah of that the korban should be ben shmona or more, but not less. And that's called mechus zman begufay. And this is a pasuk, v'hoya shivas yomim tachas imay, u'miyom hashmini v'haleh yirotze l'korban. Okay, we have to understand what the mitzvah is and what's going on. Okay, so let's go slowly. The Rambam in the 12th Shiur explains this mitzvah and this mitzvah and the mitzvahs tomim, which is Aseh Samach Aleph, and the mitzvah Malicha, the mitzvah of Ben Shmonas Yomim, the mitzvah of Tomim, and the mitzvah of Malicha, Samach Beis. And each one of these three are counted separately in Minyan Mitzvahs. Why? Because the mitzvah is on all types of korbanos. It's not limited to oilo, shlomim, or this. It's in all of them. So I would assume that's why the Rambam writes whole korban, because he wants to say that it's not in any particular korban, but it's in any of the four types of korbanos. So therefore, it's a separate mitzvah. The Rambam there, in the 12th Shiur, writes that all the Seder avodas of the korban, shchita, zrika, haktorah, v'chulei, they are all subsumed. The whole hakrovas hakorban is one mitzvah. All that which goes into oila is the part of mitzvah's oila. That which goes into to chatos is part of chatos, and part of or part of osham, or part of shalomim. But those mitzvahs which apply to all of the korbanos, all mini korbanos, they're counted separately. And he counts there 4 mitzvahs which are noeg in all korbanos. The shmonis yomim, tomim, melech v'achilus korbanos. So, just an aside, we have no idea what's going on. Isn't Shchita noeg in all karbonos and Zrika noeg in all karbonos? So why shouldn't Shchita and Zrika be separate mitzvahs for the same money? So, suggestion should be that avodas hakorban are by definition part of the kovas hakorban, and therefore they can't be counted as separate mitzvahs. The Ram's whole discussion about mitzvahs, which are on all karbonos, they should be separate mitzvahs, are not part of the etzem hachova. Miku shtifa is only in chatos, and therefore it's a chelik of chatos. And the mitzvahs, which are not part of akrova, which are in all karbonos, are separate mitzvahs. So, therefore, you understand that you can count ben shmones yomim, you can count homim, and achilas kochim. Melicha, you have to think what exactly it is. Is it part of the korban or not? And you have to evaluate melicha whether this teretz is real or not. And I guess we'll evaluate this a bit, Hashem. Now, there seems to be also an issue between the Rambam in the Shloshim and the Rambam in the Minyan HaMitzvos, whether Achilas Kochim is really part of this. And that's discussed over there, or later we'll see. But Achilas Kochim is not mentioned in this group. The Rambam mentions it later, maybe for a certain reason, whatever. Okay. Now, next. The most important issue for us over here is what is this mitzvah, ben shmonis yomim? Because a priori, if someone would have asked me and told me there's a mitzvah ben shmonis yomim, I would have said that doesn't make any sense. The pasuk, it's true. And besides everything, the pasuk says, "V'hoy yeshivas yom tachas imoy, v'hoy shmini v'holy yerotzeh l'korban." So you would say this is a din in a korban behema that it's possible pochos if it's less than 8 days or 7 days or less. Or if it's not Tomim, whatever. Because there's no tzivui over here. Miom השמיני והלאה יהיה רוצה לקורבן Hashem. So l'cheira, there's no tzivui. So one would have said it's a din that korbanos behema kosher from the 8th day on. Where does the mitzvah come from? So one would have said that this is where the Matiki Ashmur come in, the Chachmei HaMeseira, because the Sefer in Parshas Emor, in Parshas Zayin, Sefer Vov, or his test, Tomim Yel Rotzoin Mitzvah, but that explains Tomim. But we still have to know, what about Ben Shmones Yomim? So let's continue a little bit. The Ram says that this mitzvah is nichbal. For nichbal ze atzivui b'loshen acher. V'u amroi shivas yomim yihiyeh im imoi. So one can imagine yihiyeh im imoi. There's a loshen of a tzivui. Maybe that's what it should be. And more than that, you see, the pasuk, if you read it over there, it says, Kain taseh l'sholcho l'tzoncho shivas yom yiyeh imimoy b'yoyim hashmini titnoi li. So there's a tzivur. B'yom hashmini titnoi li. The Ram only quotes the beginning of the discussion. Shivas yomim yiyeh imimoy b'yom hashmini titnoi li. So that's beautiful. The only problem is that, even though we might find the pasuk, we still understand that it's nichpal. Nichpal means that tzivui before. And we don't understand that tzivui over here, where it says, V'hoya Shivas Yomim Tachas Imoy. So the V'hoya Shivas Yomim, that's a tzivui. But Yom HaShmini v'hola yerotze l'kol Hashem, it just says that it's kosher. So there, one would have said, Misvara, besides that, one would have said, Misvara, that the whole idea of Mechusas Man, Begufay, is only in Aseh. What's the mitzvah nesefes to bring a korban miom hashmini? Because less than Yom HaShmini is puzzle. So you want to be a korban, that's what you have to bring. Whoa. What's the kuvaseh? What are you supposed to do? If you say it's only Yisaseh, it's Beseda. The Ravid in the Minyan HaKotzer suggests an Yisaseh. Om Avram, ein lezeh tam, v'ulai mishum lava bo mechal aseh. And that's ein lezeh tam, shemistam heim psule korban, v'ein kan mishum mitzvah. There's no mitzvah over here. And that's the Ravid says, v'ulai mishum lava bo mechal aseh. But the best it could be is an Isaseh, and not a Kiyum Aseh. But you can't do this, because the Rambam, when he says over here, Ben Shmones Yomim, O Yoseh, V'lei Pochas Mehem, he has the Isaseh afterwards. So it means what he says, Sheyeh Korban, not going to Korban, Ben Shmones Yomim, O Yoseh, L'chayr, that's the mitzvah. There's a mitzvah Aseh and an Isaseh. And the Rambam, besides everything, who shetzivonu sheyiyeh is Mashu is supposed to do something. And then at the end of the mitzvah, he writes, Umeomrei, umiyom hashmini v'holo yerotze, yesh raya shekoidem ze lo yerotze. Hine kvar his amsa ho ashora mehakriv mechusas man. We're talking about something else before. It's only now he's introducing these Aseh. Havuhu lava bo mecha Aseh. Ulefichei loikin olav. So it means that before we're talking about a kiyum. And that also would be, you would see that from the Lashon. Ben Shmones Yomim O Yosef. It means also that he's supposed to do something. And Hu Shetzivonu, Sheyi is also he's supposed to do something. Then, besides that, you have in the Protei Mitzvas, in the beginning of Hilchos Isurim Mizbeach, the Rambam writes, Lahakriv miom hashmini v'holo, v'koidem zman zeh, hu nikra mechus zman, v'ein makriven oisei. So you get, he has the double lashon there also. Lahakriv miom hashmini v'holo, that's what you should do. V'koidem zman zeh, hu nikra mechus zman. That's the Isa. She'ein makriven oisei. So the two chlokim in the mitzvah. Now, we have a discussion. I think I said a separate shiur on it, and this has to be evaluated in context that the question is, the Ram count Isur Aseh or not? But you see in the bottom, the bottom line, let's just read it again. To see, there seems to be tzivui see, maybe I'm nuts. If you read the pasuk, it says Shivas Yomim. He says like this. It says V'hoyo Shivas Yomim Tachas Imoy. Yom HaShmini v'holo yeirotze l'korban. So Yom HaShmini v'holo yeirotze l'korban means that it's kosher. But maybe the mitzvah is that it should be Shivas Yom Tachas Imoy. And that's the mitzvah. V'hoye Shivas Yom Tachas Yeminoy. Yeminoy, hitzivono, shiyiyah kol korban shenakriv min ha-behema ben shmones yomim. Not that the shmones yomim is the kiyum, but waiting till shmones yomim is the kiyum. V'hoye Shivas Yomim Tachas Imoy. And maybe that's what it is. And then the other pasuk you could even say that's the same thing. Shivas Yomim Yeh Im Imoy. It's the same type of thing without going to Titnoli. So maybe the mitzvah is, the kiyum is that it should be Shivas Yomim before you bring it as a korban. And 7 full days, you bring it on the 8th day. But bringing on the 8th day is not the mitzvah. Maybe the mitzvah is waiting the 7 days. And Miom HaShmini is just the hechsher, but that's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is to wait the 7 days and then to bring it. And sheyi kol korban shenakam mit behema ben shmonis yomim v'lo yosef. Well, pachas mehem. Then you don't need the titnoli, really. Now, aside, Rav Sadi going in his Sefer Mitzvas on page 164. The Rav Sadi going says in Perek Yutes, "Ve'ein lahakid behema el yachar she'abo le'al shmones yomim miom shenolda u'miyom hashmini v'hala ye'rotze." But the nusach of the mitzvah is like it Esau say, "Ve'ein lahakid behema el yachar she'avru oleha shmona yomim." So maybe Mimon and Isa say the Bahag doesn't count. Mechusas man is minyan mitzvahs, and maybe the Bahag holds that mitzvahs say have to be a kumbah say. That's why he doesn't count it. Maybe he holds that Miom HaShmiini v'Hol is only an Isa say. Now, when the Rambam says sheyeh kol korban shenakum min habehema ben shmones yomim min habehema, because the din of shmones yomim was only formulated by behema, and that's why the Rambam says it. It doesn't apply to a mincha. It doesn't apply to a knife. The whole din of mechusas man that we're talking about shmones yomim is only in behema, and that's how the Rambam says it. And it doesn't apply to ketanim sheba Torah. Torah b'nei yoina. So it means b'nei yoina are young and Torah are old, and before that they're old by Torah there's a psul. But it's not mechusas man begufay. It goes only in behema. The expression mechusas man begufay is based on the Mishnah in Zvachim in Perek Yudalid Mishnah Gimel. Mechusas man bein begufo, bein bebolov. There are two types of mechusas man. There's gufay in the gufa behema and mechusas man in the bala behema. So the Ram there in Pirush Mishnah says in Perek Yudalid Mishnah Gimel, mechusas man begufay v'chulei v'hu sheterem shomoloi Shivas Yomim. And it has to finish Shivas Yomim. At Mechuzas Ma'amagufa, that's what I'm saying here. Okay. See, the problem with the kefil, the pasuk, the second pasuk, is we want to say that this mitzvah is noig in all korbanos. The problem, these psukim in Sefer Shmos are referring to Bechor. The pasuk is Bechor bonecha titein li in Perich of Beis pasuk Chav Ches Bechor bonecha titein li. Kein tasel shochel tzon chashivas yomim yeh imo is referring to Bechor. Bayom Ashmini titnali. So since the pasuk is talking about Bechor, l'cher is not a kefil. The important thing that it's knowing in all kabbalas, and therefore it's a mitzvah for kel. So if the pasuk will be only in Sefer Shmos, the mitzvah would only be in a Bechor Behema. And if it's only Bechor Behema, not in all kabbalas, it's not a mitzvah. And if the pasuk so we don't understand what this is. Besides everything else, the Miom Ashmini is talking about l'chayim at the mitzvah sina l'kayin, not about akrova. The mitzvah sina l'kayin in Adam is mishloishim yoim, and in Behema, b'chol Behema, it's Miom Ashmini. And it's not a din in Akovas HaKorban. And Unkelis Kain Taved L'tocha Li'onoch L'toirach Li'onoch Shivas Yomim Shiva Yomin Tehei Im Imei Biyoma Tmina'a Tafrishine Kodamai. You should mafish it for me. They give it to the Kohen. It's a din. The Yom HaShmini is the mitzvah's hafrosha. The titno is the hafrosha, not the hakrova. So what I would have said is the Rambam learns this mitzvah from the Mechilta, the Rabbi Shimon Yochai. The Mechilta goes like this. In Shmos Chav Beis Chav Tes. Sivas Yomi Mimoi B'Yom HaShmini Yochol B'Chol Kosher B'Yom HaShmini U'Posel Mi'Yom HaShmini U'Lahalon. It's Shmini is a hechsher and a psul. Before Shmini is posel, and after Shmini is kosher. Tamaloima mukdoshim Yom HaShmini v'holo yeirotze. Yochol Yom HaShmini quotes the other part. Yom HaShmini also. It's not only by Bechor, it's by all korbanos. Tamaloim b'mukdashim, other korbanos, this first pasuk that the Ram quotes, Miom HaShmini v'hola. Yochol yu ksherim mishmini ve'elech psulim b'yoim HaShmini, Tamaloim HaShmini titnoli. So, B'yom HaShmini titnoli is talking about a hechsher korban, not about the mitzvah nesina, according to the Mechilta. Minayin lited is omer lezeh l'shelezeh that the din nesina, which is said by the bin nesina, which is the ha'klava, which is said by Bechor, also applies to all mukdashim. V'yas omer bezeh tzibezeh that this din is a din in all kachim. Tamaloima imo l'gzeir shava. So it means both of them together merge to be the mitzvah. And this is quoted in the Pirush Mishnah in Parah. In Perek Aleph, Mishnah Daled, the Ram writes, V'omer im ekrivam b'shmini yotza hu lashon ha'Torah. Miom hashmini v'hola yerotze. V'omer b'chor b'yom hashmini titnoli. V'omer imo l'gzeir shava. Ma imo omer b'chor kosher b'shmini atzmai. Af imo omer kan kosher b'shmini atzmai. Bama dvom amuim mishekodem b'krivoi. Aval chatchilo eino krivim ela miyom hashmini. So it means both together merged. That it's not dafka lebechor, it's by all korbanos, and it's Yom HaShmini. Because Yom HaShmini titnoli is not referring, according to the Mechilta, not referring to Akrova. Okay, excuse me, it's not referring to Nesina, to Afrosha. It's not referring to Afrosha, it's referring to Akrova. So once it's Akrova, and you put everything together, there's a mitzvah Akrova from Yom HaShmini for all korbanos. The problem with this is that it's not a kefil in the real sense of the word. When we interpret the word kefil, these two merge together to be the mitzvah. That's what happens in the Mechilta of Rabbi Shimon Yochai. Now, in the Mechilta of Rabbi Yishmael, Mishpatim, the Masechta de Kaspa, Pasha Yutes, B'yom HaShmini titnoli, ein li el Shmini, Mishmini l'hala minayin, haludan, nema kan Shmini, nema l'hala Shmini, ma l'hala nema Shmini l'achshe ben shmonis yomim, av Shmini omo kan l'achshe shivas yomim, shmonis yomim. Ma kan b'yom HaShmini, af l'hala b'yom HaShmini, b'yom HaShmini titnoli, lohoitzi mechus zman. So it's just to be machshir that the Chen Pirush Rashi l'shivas yom yimimoy zu ashor l'koyin shim bo lemahe hakovosay lo yimahe miom shmona kol shmona lefi shehu mechus zman. So you don't know that there's a psakiyum. It's not clear in the Mechilta the Rabbi Yishmael. But l'cheira in the Reb Shimon Yochai, especially if it's interpreting titnuli, then it applies to everything. L'cheira you have a mitzvah, and titnu is hakrava. The Gemara is also mashma that it's only like an Isa. There's no kiyum. The Gemara in Chulin, a pay aleph from an aleph, where it talks about nitkol Aseh. And l'cheira, the Ram Sefer Mitzvas is holding like the Mechilta, not like Pasha the Gemara. And that's the Ram sheet in general, that you go after Midrash Halacha in Kodei and Minyan Mitzvahs. The question is, we know you see, the question is like this. So comes out Pshuta Shel Mikra is about Nesinas B'chol Koyin, that's the Unclus, and the Matiki Ashmur say it's about Akrova. So if you recall, we learned in the Rambam that there's no stira. You can mekayim both Pshuta Shel Mikra and also the Matiki Ashmur. And therefore the Rambam said in Mitzvah Chof, in Binyan HaMizbeach, that the mitzvah of Mizbach Adomo is a mitzvah l'shor, but the Matik in Pshuto Shel Mikra are Bomo. But the Matik Yeshmur say the L'Doiris, the Din, Mizbeach HaMechubal Adomo, and Lo Yum Sovos Abonim. In the Matik Yashmur saying it's a problem of Eidos, but Pshuto Shel Mikra, it's a problem that the children shouldn't die for their father's sins, and that's the Bnei Amordim in Psukim in Melachim. V'es Bnei Hamukim Loi Hemis Kakosim B'Sefer Teres Moshe Asher Tziva Hashem Leimo Lo Yum Sovos Abonim Ubonim Avoisam Avon Ovis. Ki im isha b'chet yumos. Mlochim beis. Posuk yud perek yud dalet posuk vav. So it means the kiyum both the Pshuto Shel Mikra and the Matiki Ashmur. Even though the mitzvah is the fi Matiki Ashmur, as we know the lav of Yum Sovos Abonim is Eidus. In Lav Reish Pei Zayin, but there's also Kiyum Pshuto Shel Mikra. So here also, there's a Kiyum Pshuto Shel Mikra that the Mitzvahs Nesina of Bechor is only Miom HaShmini V'Hola, but the Matiki Ashmur, because of Matiki Ashmur, there's a mitzvah of Miom HaShmini V'Hola for Akrava. Now, that's the Ram says even further. U'mitzvah zo tichlo ha'karbonos kulam. Well, karbonos kol kulam. Korban yochid v'korban tzibur. Why does he say that? So that again is this whole business that it has to be in all karbonos. Because you write to Shiur Yud Beis that you count only mitzvahs hakolilos, and it means kol sugits karbonos, commits nifrodis, and a korban yochid and korban tzibur. Okay. Then the Ram says, "Mishika b'chuzman eino loike," because it says "Alava bo Aseh." Because even though there's an Aseh, the mark is only an ashol mufreshes. As the Ram says in Pirush Mishnayos, in the beginning of the third parak of Makis, parak Gimel Mishnah Aleph. Okay. In the Gemara in Chulin is also mashma that there's a lav, there's an Aseh from the pasuk of Nikol Aseh. The Ramban discusses that barichus, and it doesn't mean that there's a kiyum, but there's an Isa. The Ramban over there in Chulin and payment base. Next. You see, but before you finished with this, whatever you could prove, from the Mechilta that you're supposed to do something as a kiyum, but we don't understand what the kiyum is. Because since you can't, any korban shemakriv to be kosher has to be Yom HaShmini, when God tells you to bring a korban, he's telling you to bring a korban kosher. And the only korban kosher is Yom HaShmini. So what's a separate mitzvah to bring a korban Yom HaShmini? I don't understand what's going on, really, in the bottom line. You can quote the Mechilta and be very fancy and say, there's the HaMitzvos over here. It's all very nice. But, when you have Mitzvah say, it's called Aseh be Mitzvah. So what is it? What are you supposed to do? Next. Mitzvah Samach Aleph. Mitzvah Achas V'Shishim. He shetzivonu. Sheyiyeh kol korban shenakivehu shalem. See, he doesn't add mit behema. That the korban should be complete. Shalem b'minoi tomim min amumim. Seems to be two separate things. Shalem b'minoi tomim min amumim. Sheba'u bakosuv. V'omo akabola shehei mumim. So there's tomim min amumim and shalem b'minoi, whatever that means. V'omo akabola shehei mumim. That's the tomim min amumim. V'omo yis'aleh, quotes a pasuk. Tom yiyeh l'rotzain. Or the Sifra, Tom yiyeh l'rotzain mitzvah say. So here, we know there's a mitzvah say. It's very clear. Because you have the Sifra, he's quoting the Sifra. Now let's go slowly. So in Mitzvah say, Ram says, Timakriv tovasholim b'minoi tomim min amumim. Besides the Mitzvah say of tomim, there are many lavim to be makriv or makdish about mum. There's a lav to be makdish about mum in mitzvahs. A lav to be sheichet about mum. A lav to be zerg damim about mum. And a lav to be makdish about mum. Loisa said tzadi aleph at tzadi dalet. But here, we're talking about the Aseh. Paul Corbin, Dram leaves out. Bahama over here, so l'chera, one would assume that includes Eifus, which Met Hashem will talk about B'li Neder. And the Sachim, Met Hashem. This is different than Mechus's man, because Mechus's man is only by Bahama. And this mitzvah is also by other things, by oifes, we'll see, and maybe by menachos, nesachim, whatever. The Radvaz in Hilchos Yisui Mizbeach, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, he says that the Aseh of Tomim is not mafurish in the Torah. We don't see it really. Because the Torah doesn't say Tomim Takriv, but it says Tomim Yeh L'Ratzon. So you can say, if you mark it Balmom, it's not L'Ratzon. But he doesn't violate an Aseh. I will Aseh Lo Yoba. The Radvaz tries to come to tell you that from the pasuk itself, you could have said that Eino Tomim is puzzle, but there's no mitzvah. So the and we wouldn't have known that the word yeah is a separate kiyum. They have a common tomim. The Ram Nisui Mizbeach, Nisui Bia, Mitzvah Selios. Excuse me. The Ram Nisui Mizbeach, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph, Mitzvah say Leos kol karbonos tmimim u'muvucharim shenem atomim yiyeh l'ratzon. Zo mitzvah say. So Radvaz is medayik from this Hisof zo mitzvah say. The Hisof is coming to say that Eino Tomim is not only a psul, but a mitzvah say. And the Ram therefore quotes here the Sifra that only through the Matiki Hashmua we know there's a mitzvah over here. And that's this Sifra. That Tomim Yiyeh L'Ratzon is a mitzvah say. Because without the Matiki Hashmua, you could say that it's only a psul. And we have to go back. and think about the mitzvah of Shivas Yom Tachzimoy. Is there Yiyeh Tachzimoy, or the mitzvah is the Yiyeh Tachzimoy? And in other words, the question is the Hakrov of Shmini the Kiyum? Or the Kiyum is taking it, is giving it for Korban after Shvi? You see, the whole discussion before was assuming you learn it out from the mitzvah of Shmini. And then we had the problem of Titnoli, maybe it's Hafrosho or something else, but maybe Fakert, that the mitzvah is learned from Shivas Yom Tiyetachas Imoy. Or that's the mitzvah, that's what you should do. And in that, there's a kiyum of after of having it for 7 days and not be makam till afterwards, and also in Isa be makam before, and maybe that's what's going on, and that makes it much more simple. So Shalim. Tomim, Noki, the different translations over, you have to understand what the mitzvah is. And what he says over here, Tomim min amumim, you see, we'll see later on Mitzvah Hashem next week, I don't think we'll get to it today, that besides the idea of mum, there's a separate Indian of Tomim, Shleimus. And that's where the Ram doubles the Lashon. Sholem b'minoi, Tomim min amumim. Two separate things. We'll see. There may be by Mincha, there might be an issue of Tomim, and there might not be Mumim in Menachos. And then, in Mumim itself, Tomim and Amumim shebo bakosu v'omer kabbalah shei Mumim. So some Mumim are mufurish in the pasuk, and some Mumim come only through Kabbalah. And there are two types of Mumim. There's something called Sholem, and in Mumim or in Tomim of Mumim, there are two types. There's some that's mufurish in the pasuk. There's some that's a Kabbalah. Okay. Where? So the mitzvah requires two things. Tomim min amumim and shalom aminoi. And maybe this is a sifri in Pinchas that in Tomim, besides mumim, there's something else. In Pinchas, in Soy Piska, Kuf Mem Tes, Mulvad Ulis Atomid, Uminchaso Ta'asu, Tmimim Yu Lochem Niskeim, Makish Nisochim LeBehemo, Ma Behemo Nifseles Bemumim, Bechoser Ubeyeser, Af Nisochim Nifsole Bemumim, Bechoser Beyeser. And maybe Chosser and Yeser is a question of Sholem B'minoi, and it's not a mum because it's a separate thing. And maybe the Ram do this for Menachos because the more has a suffix in the Gemara whether there's a lav of mum by Menachos. So if there's no lav, maybe there's no mum b'chlal by Menachos, and maybe it's a separate inyan of Sholem. And that's what's going on. So here, we're going to continue with Hashem, the question, what's considered mum, what's considered Sholem, what's going on Menachos. Hashem will pick it up this next week, and Bosh Ishav Freilich and Purim, and the Rebbeinu Shalom's Hashkocha, which has been with us, should continue, and there should be Shalom Yisrael. Atzlocha.